School Freewares Visual Basic Express 2010 Tutorials. Tutorial 34. Programming the Shooter. EZInvaders Part 3. And now it's time to draw in the shooter. So I'll go to the picture box, drop a picture box into the form, position the picture box near the bottom. Picture box 1 will be changed to shooter. The size will be 50 by 50 to match the size of the shooter. And the image, of course, will be set to shooter.png. So the shooter is all set. And now what we have to do is animate the shooter, so I'll move to the right and to the left. When I press the right arrow key on the keyboard, the shooter should move to the right. When I press the left arrow key on the keyboard, the shooter should move to the left. Now there's a couple of parts that needed to be done to move the shooter around. So first of all, what I need to do is have a timer. So I go ahead and drop a timer in. I'll change the timer from timer 1 to timer main. I'll change the timer to be enabled, and the interval was set to 1. Next, I'll just double click on timer main, and I'm going to need a couple of variables. One to tell the computer if we are moving to the right or to the left with the shooter. So S right, short for shooter right, is set to a boolean. And of course, dim shooter left is set to boolean. So when shooter right is true, we're moving to the right, and when shooter left is true, we're moving to the left. Okay, from there, what I need to do is go back to form main, click on the main form, and go to events. Go to key down, double click, and tell the computer if the right arrow is pressed. So if e.key value equals keys dot right, then we know that the right arrow key has been pressed, and we could say s right equal true. If e dot key value equals keys dot left, then s left equal true. So within the timer main tick, so what I'm going to do is call a private sub, move shooter, and I'll go ahead and create the private sub here. So private sub move shooter. If s right equal true, then we'll tell shooter dot left, and we'll just add the shooter speed. I'm going to have to create the variable in just a few moments because we don't have shooter speed at this time. If shooter left equal true, then shooter dot left will be subtracted by the shooter speed. There's an end if, and now I'll have to go ahead and create shooter speed as an integer, and right now I'll set this as a speed of 1. So we go ahead, run. When I press the right arrow key, the shooter moves to the right. When I press the left arrow key, the shooter stops and pauses. So we'll have to go ahead and fix that real quick. So the way to do this, if the right arrow key is pressed, then we want to make sure that we go right. So that means that shooter left is now equal false, because we can either go right or left. When shooter left is true. Shooter right should be equal to false. Okay. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and run. See if this works a little bit better. When I press right, moves to the right. When I press left, moves to the left. But if I take my fingers off the key, the shooter still moves and doesn't stop. So let's go ahead, close this down, go back to form main, and here we have key up. So when I no longer am holding the key down, when the key is released, we want to make sure that if e.keyValue is equal to the keys.right, we know that the right key has been released, so therefore we can say shooter right equal false. If e.keyValue is equal to keys.left, we know that the left arrow key has been released. Then we could say shooter left is equal false. Alright, now I'll go ahead and run. And now I have to hold down the right arrow key and the left arrow key, and when I release, the shooter stops. But there still seems to be a little bit of a problem, because if I keep holding the key down, the shooter leaves the screen. So what I'll do is just close down the form now. And if you remember here, within the form we had the client rectangle. So if I want to make sure that the shooter stops at the end of the form, I had to put in a hit detection for the client rectangle, which you see here in orange. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. So under move shooter, if shooter right is true and the shooter's left side dot left added to the shooter dot width, which will give us the right side of the shooter, if that is less than the form's client rectangle width, so I'll put in less than me client rectangle dot width, then we allow the shooter to move to the right. If shooter left is true and the shooter's left side, so shooter dot left is greater than the client's rectangle, then we allow the shooter to move to the left. So go ahead, run. Shooter stops at the left side. Try out for the shooter moving all the way to the right. Hopefully it'll stop. I see the shooter moves a little slowly, but it does stop. Close this down. And if I want to increase the shooter speed, I think I'll go ahead and do that. I'll change the shooter speed to shooter equals 3 at this time. And now we find that the shooter moves a whole lot quicker. So it looks like the shooter is done for the time being. So let's go ahead and work on the shot for the shooter.